The warning klaxon screamed through the cramped cockpit as Jackson Vale fought desperately with the controls of his failing spacecraft. Sparks erupted from the navigation console, filling the air with acrid smoke and the bitter taste of burned circuitry. Through the cracked viewport, the planet Luminara loomed larger by the second, a world of impossible beauty, with floating crystal cities that caught and refracted the light of its twin suns into cascading rainbows across the atmosphere. "Come on, you piece of junk," Jackson muttered through gritted teeth, his knuckles white as he wrestled with the unresponsive flight stick. The ship shuddered violently, its hull groaning under the stress of uncontrolled atmospheric entry. He'd been a space trader for 8 years, hauling cargo between the outer rim colonies, but nothing had prepared him for this moment of complete system failure. The planet's surface rushed toward him with terrifying speed. Towering spires of translucent crystal rose from floating platforms that defied gravity, connected by bridges of pure energy that sparkled like captured starlight. Gardens of luminescent plants cascaded down from aerial terraces, their bioluminescent flowers creating a tapestry of blues, purples, and golds that painted the very air with color. Jackson had heard stories about Luminara during his travels, whispered tales in spaceport cantinas about a world where the inhabitants could manipulate light itself, where emotions were visible as colored auras, and where the line between science and magic blurred into something beautiful and incomprehensible. He'd never imagined he'd experience it firsthand, especially not like this. The ship's emergency systems kicked in, deploying a combination of parachutes and repulsors that slowed his descent just enough to prevent instant death. Still, the impact, when it came, was tremendous. The craft skidded across a platform of smooth crystal, scattering prismatic fragments in its wake before finally coming to rest against a grove of singing trees whose melodic chimes now rang discordantly from the disturbance. For a moment, everything was silent except for the settling groans of twisted metal and the gentle tinkling of crystal debris. Jackson hung suspended in his pilot's harness, tasting blood from where he'd bitten his tongue. His head throbbed, and something warm trickled down his forehead, but he was alive. More than alive, he was conscious and apparently intact. The cockpit canopy had cracked, but not shattered. Through the spider web of fractures, he could see figures approaching. They moved with an ethereal grace that seemed to defy the concept of walking, their feet barely touching the crystal surface. Their skin held a subtle luminescence, as if lit from within by soft starlight, and their hair seemed to float despite the absence of any discernible breeze. The first to reach his ship was unlike anything he'd ever seen. She stood nearly 6 feet tall, with skin that shifted between pale silver and gentle gold depending on the angle of the light. Her hair cascaded past her shoulders in waves that seemed to capture and hold the ambient luminescence of the floating city. Most striking were her eyes, large and expressive, colored like deep amethyst with flecks of silver that sparkled like distant galaxies. She placed her palm against the cracked canopy, and Jackson felt a warmth spread through the damaged crystal. To his amazement, the fractures began to seal themselves, the transparent material flowing like liquid before solidifying once more. The process was mesmerizing, conducted with such casual ease that it seemed as natural as breathing. "Are you injured?" Her voice carried directly into his mind, warm and concerned. Though her lips hadn't moved, the telepathic communication felt oddly intimate, like a gentle touch against his consciousness. Jackson fumbled with his harness release, managing to free himself and push open the now-repaired canopy. "I think I'm okay," he said aloud, his voice hoarse from the smoke he'd inhaled. "Thank you for fixing that. I'm Jackson, by the way, Jackson Vale." She stepped back gracefully as he climbed out of the cockpit, her expression radiating calm compassion. "I am Nira Salas. You have crashed in the healing gardens of Ethros." She gestured to their surroundings, and Jackson realized they were in some kind of medical facility. The singing trees weren't just decorative, their melodies seemed to promote a sense of peace and well-being that was already helping to ease his headache. "Healing gardens," he repeated, looking around with growing wonder. Streams of liquid light flowed through channels carved into the crystal platform, their gentle glow pulsing in rhythm with some cosmic heartbeat. Floating pools contained water that seemed to hold captured starlight, and the air itself shimmered with beneficial energies. "You are fortunate to have survived such an impact," Nira continued, her mental voice tinged with professional concern. "May I examine you for injuries? Sometimes trauma is not immediately apparent, and the shock of your arrival has disrupted the local energy patterns." Jackson nodded, fascinated by everything around him. As Nira approached, he noticed that her presence seemed to emanate a soothing warmth. Her hands hovered over his body without quite touching, and he felt a gentle scanning sensation, as if warm sunlight was penetrating his skin to check for damage, minor concussion, several contusions, and significant stress to your nervous system, she diagnosed with quiet efficiency. "Nothing that cannot be easily treated, but you should rest and allow the healing energies time to work." "Healing energies?" Jackson asked, though he was already feeling better. "Just standing in this place, Luminara responds to life," Nira explained, guiding him toward one of the floating pools. "Our world is alive in ways that solid planets cannot be. The crystal formations store and amplify positive energy, while the light itself carries healing properties. You need only to immerse yourself in the pools, and the water will draw out your pain and fatigue." As they walked, Jackson found himself studying Nira with growing fascination. There was something about her that went beyond her obvious beauty. She moved with purpose and confidence, yet maintained an air of gentle kindness that made him feel immediately at ease. Her telepathic communication felt natural and unobtrusive, as if she were simply extending her thoughts to include him in their scope. "I've never seen anything like this place," he admitted as they reached the edge of a particularly inviting pool. The water within glowed with soft silver light, and its surface rippled with patterns that seemed to respond to their approach. "Nor have we seen anything quite like you," Nira replied, and for the first time, he detected a note of curiosity in her mental voice. "Humans are rare in this sector of space. What brought you to our world?" Jackson began to explain about his trading route, the unexpected engine failure, and his desperate search for a place to land safely. As he spoke, he noticed that other beings had gathered at a respect, full distance, all sharing Nira's luminescent beauty, but each unique in their own way. They watched him with interest but without fear, as if crashed alien visitors were merely an unusual but not unwelcome occurrence. The warmth of Nira's presence, the beauty of the floating city, and the gentle healing energies of the pools were already working their magic on both his body and his spirit. For the first time in hours, Jackson felt himself beginning to relax. He had no idea that his rival had already set in motion events that would challenge everything he thought he knew about love, choice, and destiny. 3 days had passed since Jackson's dramatic arrival on Luminara, and he found himself reluctant to leave the healing gardens of Ethros. His ship's repairs were nearly complete. The Luminaran technicians worked with an almost mystical understanding of both technology and energy manipulation, but something far more compelling than mere convenience kept him lingering in this floating paradise. That something had a name, Nirasalis. Each morning, she would arrive at the gardens just as the twin suns painted the crystal spires in shades of rose and gold. Her presence seemed to make the very air shimmer with warmth, and Jackson found himself timing his walks to coincide with her rounds through the healing pools. Their conversations had evolved from simple medical checkups to lengthy discussions about their respective worlds, cultures, and dreams. "Tell me about the stars between worlds," Nira requested as they sat beside a fountain of liquid light. Her telepathic voice had grown more comfortable in his mind, like a favorite melody he'd never tire of hearing. "What does it feel like to drift in the emptiness between destinations?" Jackson leaned back against the smooth crystal bench, watching how the light played across her features. "It's peaceful in a way that's hard to describe. When you're out there in the void, with nothing but starlight for company, you realize how vast everything is, how small your problems are in comparison to the infinite." "Do you ever feel lonely?" she asked, and he caught a flutter of something deeper in her mental tone, a genuine concern that made his chest tighten with unexpected emotion. "I did," he admitted, meeting her amethyst gaze. "Until I crashed here." The admission hung between them like a bridge neither was quite ready to cross. Nira's luminescent skin flushed with a soft pink glow, an involuntary display of emotion. that she quickly tried to suppress. But Jackson had been watching her long enough to recognize the signs. On Luminara, feelings couldn't be hidden as easily as they could among his own species. Their moment was interrupted by the arrival of a whirlwind in female form. "Sister." The voice rang out with musical laughter, cutting through their quiet conversation. Like a shooting star through peaceful night sky. "Are you going to monopolize our mysterious visitor all morning?" Jackson turned to see someone who was unmistakably related to Nira, yet completely different in energy and presence. Where Nira moved with gentle grace, this newcomer practically bounced with contained excitement. Her hair was shorter, cut in a way that framed her face with rebellious curls, and her skin held a more vibrant luminescence that shifted rapidly between gold and electric blue. "Jackson Vale," Nira said with a mixture of affection and exasperation in her mental voice. "Meet my twin sister, Zen Salas." Zen approached with an athletic stride that spoke of someone accustomed to action and adventure. Her eyes the same, amethyst color as Nira's, but with more silver starbursts sparkled with mischief and curiosity. Unlike her sister's flowing healer's robes, Zen wore fitted clothing designed for movement, with crystal accessories that chimed softly as she walked. "So you're the brave pilot who fell from the sky," Zen said, her telepathic voice carrying a playful lilt that contrasted sharply with Nira's gentle warmth. "I've been dying to meet you properly. Nira's been so protective, keeping you all to herself in these dreary healing pools." "They're not dreary," Nira protested, a spark of defensive pride coloring her thoughts. "The gardens serve an important purpose." "Oh, I know," Zen replied with a grin that was both loving and teasing. "But surely our guest would enjoy seeing more of Luminara than just crystal pools and singing trees. The exploration platforms are magnificent this time of cycle, and the energy storms near the outer rim create the most spectacular light displays." Jackson found himself caught between two very different but equally compelling forces. Nira's presence was like settling into a warm embrace after a long journey, comfortable, healing, and increasingly essential to his sense of well-being. But Zen radiated adventure and possibility, promising experiences that would challenge and exhilarate. "Energy storms?" he asked, genuinely intrigued. Zen's eyes lit up with enthusiasm. "Massive electrical phenomena that dance between the floating platforms. They're completely harmless if you know how to navigate them, and the way they interact with our crystal cities creates aurora effects that would make your home system's nebulae look pale by comparison." "Zen is our primary atmospheric scout," Nira explained, though Jackson detected a note of worry in her mental voice. "She spends most of her time exploring the far reaches of our world's aerial territories. Someone has to map the expansion possibilities," Zen said with a shrug, "and someone has to push the boundaries of what we think is safe or possible. If we all stayed in the healing gardens, we'd never discover anything new." The gentle criticism wasn't lost on Nira, whose skin flushed a deeper pink. Jackson sensed an old dynamic at play between the sisters, one that spoke of fundamental differences in how they approached life and responsibility. "I'd love to see the energy storms," Jackson said diplomatically, "but I should probably wait until I'm fully recovered." "Nonsense," Zen laughed, her telepathic voice bubbling with amusement. "The best healing happens when you're actively engaged with life, not hiding away in crystalline cocoons. Besides, I've been piloting atmospheric craft since before I could walk properly. You'd be completely safe with me." "Zen," Nira's mental voice carried a warning tone. "He's still recovering from significant trauma. The healing process shouldn't be rushed, and you're being overprotective, as usual," Zen countered, though her response was filled with sibling affection rather than genuine irritation. "When was the last time you left these gardens yourself? You spend so much time tending to others that you forget to live your own life." Jackson watched the exchange with growing fascination. The sisters were clearly devoted to each other, but their approaches to existence couldn't have been more different. Nira embodied stability, healing, and careful nurturing. Zen represented exploration, risk-taking, and passionate engagement with the unknown. "What if we compromised?" he suggested, surprising himself with the diplomatic solution. "Maybe Zen could show me some of the safer exploration platforms, and we could work our way up to the energy storms once Nira feels I'm ready for more extreme adventures. Both sisters turned to look at him, and he felt the weight of their combined attention like twin suns focusing their light through a prism. For a moment, he caught a glimpse of something in their shared gaze, a recognition that went beyond mere interest. In his suggestion, that, Zen said slowly, is actually a reasonable proposal. It would allow for gradual acclimatization, Nira agreed, though her tone suggested she was still processing something deeper than mere logistics. As the three of them began planning a careful exploration of Luminara's wonders, Jackson couldn't shake the feeling that he'd just stepped onto a path that would lead somewhere unexpected. The attraction he felt toward Nira was undeniable, but Zen's vibrant energy stirred something different in him, a desire for adventure and discovery that had been dormant during his years of routine trading runs. He had no way of knowing that, on Luminara, such connections were never simple, and that his presence had already begun to activate ancient customs that would soon demand an impossible choice. 2 weeks had transformed Jackson's understanding of what it meant to be alive. Under Zen's enthusiastic guidance, he had soared through the energy storms on crystalline gliders, their surfaces crackling with harmless lightning that painted his skin in shifting patterns of blue and silver. With Nira, he had discovered the deeper mysteries of Luminara meditation chambers, where thoughts became visible as dancing lights, and healing sanctuaries where the very air hummed with restorative power. The three of them had fallen into a rhythm that felt as natural as the orbit of planets around their twin suns. Mornings belonged to Nira and the gentle exploration of Luminara's more contemplative spaces. Afternoons were Zen's domain, filled with adventure and the breathless exhilaration of discovering new wonders. Evenings found all three together, sharing meals that consisted of foods that literally glowed with nutritional energy, while they talked until the aurora-painted night sky reminded them that time existed. Jackson's ship had been repaired for days, but he couldn't bring himself to leave. Every attempt to discuss his eventual departure was met with carefully neutral responses from both sisters, though he caught glimpses of deeper emotions in the subtle shifts of their luminescent skin. Nira's gentle pink flush whenever he mentioned staying longer, Zen's brief flicker of blue sadness when he spoke of the stars calling him onward. What troubled him most was his own reluctance to choose a course of action. For the first time in his adult life, he felt truly torn between possibilities. The safe, healing warmth of Nira's presence called to something deep in his soul, a part of him that had been wounded by years of solitary travel and was finally learning to trust again. But Zen's vibrant energy awakened dreams he'd forgotten he possessed, visions of exploration and shared adventures that could reshape his understanding of what life could offer. The crisis came on a morning when the twin suns hung low in the sky, casting everything in shades of amber and rose. Jackson was walking alone through the gardens, trying to sort through his increasingly complicated feelings, when he encountered a figure he had never seen before. The being that approached him was clearly ancient, even by Luminaran standards. His skin held the deep luminescence of someone who had absorbed centuries of starlight, shifting between silver and gold with an intensity that spoke of profound wisdom and power. His hair flowed like liquid mercury, and his eyes, those same amethyst depths shared by all Luminarans, held the weight of millennia. Jackson Vale, the elder said, his telepathic voice carrying harmonics that seemed to resonate with the very crystal beneath their feet. I am Elder Voss, keeper of the luminous laws. We must speak. Something in the elder's tone made Jackson's chest tighten with apprehension. Is there a problem? Have I violated some custom I wasn't aware of? Come, Elder Voss gestured toward a secluded grove where the singing trees created a natural amphitheater. What we must discuss concerns the welfare of more than just yourself. They settled onto benches of living crystal that grew from the platform itself, adjusting their height and configuration to provide perfect comfort. Elder Voss was silent for a long moment, his ancient eyes studying Jackson with an intensity that felt like being examined by the cosmos itself. You have been here 17 cycles. The elder began finally. In that time, you have formed connections with 2 daughters of one of our most prominent families. Nira and Zen have been wonderful hosts, Jackson replied carefully, sensing dangerous currents beneath the conversation. They've helped me understand your world and recover from my crash indeed. Elder Voss's mental voice carried layers of meaning that Jackson couldn't quite decipher. And in doing so, they have both begun to exhibit the signs of deep resonance. Deep resonance, the elder's expression grew serious. Among our people, emotional connections are not merely feelings, they are tangible forces that reshape reality itself. When a Luminaran forms a profound bond with another being, their life energy begins to synchronize. Their luminescence shifts to match complementary frequencies. Their very essence becomes intertwined. Jackson felt a chill despite the warm air. Are you saying that Nira and Zen are both experiencing deep resonance with you? Yes, Elder. Voss's confirmation hit like a physical blow. This is not merely attraction or affection. It is a fundamental alteration of their being that occurs perhaps once in a lifetime, if at all. The implications crashed over Jackson like a tide of liquid starlight. He thought of Nira's increasingly vivid luminescence when they were together, the way her presence seemed to harmonize with something deep in his chest. He remembered Zen's energy synchronizing with his during their adventures, creating feedback loops of excitement and discovery that felt almost supernatural. What does this mean? He asked, though part of him already dreaded the answer. According to our most ancient laws, Elder Voss explained, his mental voice heavy with the weight of tradition. Deep resonance creates a bonding obligation. When such a connection forms, it must be honored through formal union, or the unbonded individual will experience a gradual fading of their life force. Fading? Jackson's voice came out as barely a whisper. Without the completion of the resonance bond, they will slowly lose their luminescence, their vitality, their very connection to the energy that sustains our kind. Eventually, they fade entirely from existence. The horror of it struck Jackson like a physical blow. But they can't both be bonded to me. That's impossible. Under normal circumstances, yes. The elder's ancient eyes held depths of sorrow that spoke of witnessing such tragedies before. Luminaran law and custom demand that each bonding be exclusive, complete, and eternal. To attempt otherwise would violate the fundamental principles that govern our society. Then one of them will. Jackson couldn't finish the sentence. Fade, yes, unless. Elder Voss paused, studying Jackson's expression carefully. There is one possibility, though it has not been attempted in over 3,000 cycles. What possibility? The trial of luminous hearts, an ancient test designed to determine whether a bond strong enough to sustain multiple resonances might exist. If successful, it would allow for a trinity union, something theoretical that our oldest texts describe, but no living Luminaran has ever witnessed. Jackson's mind reeled, and if it fails, all three participants fade together. Elder Voss replied with stark honesty. The trial is not merely dangerous, it requires a connection so profound, so perfectly balanced that even our ancestors considered it nearly mythical. The weight of the choice settled on Jackson's shoulders like the gravity of a collapsing star. He could leave now, breaking both connections and condemning both sisters to slow dissolution. He could choose one, saving her while ensuring the other's tragic fate. Or he could risk everything on a trial that might save them all or destroy. Then together, how long do I have to decide? The resonance will reach its critical threshold in 3 cycles, Elder Voss answered. After that, the choice will be made for you by the laws of nature itself. As the ancient being rose to leave, his final words echoed in Jackson's mind like the tolling of cosmic bells. Choose wisely. Young traveler, the stars themselves will judge the strength of your heart. Alone in the grove of singing trees, Jackson buried his face in his hands and tried to comprehend how love, something that should have been beautiful and life-giving, had become a matter of life and death for everyone he had come to care about. The revelation hung between them like a storm cloud ready to break. Jackson had found Nira and Zen in the garden of echoing thoughts, a crystalline grove where emotions took visible form as dancing lights. Now, as he finished explaining Elder Voss's words, the air around them swirled with a chaos of colors: silver threads of shock from Nira, crimson spirals of defiance from Zen, and his own churning mixture of fear and desperate hope manifesting as deep blue currents. 3 cycles, Nira whispered, her telepathic voice barely a breath in his mind. Her luminescent skin had gone pale, almost transparent, as if the knowledge was already beginning the fading process. I had wondered why my energy felt so unstable lately. Zen stood abruptly, her form blazing with angry gold light. This is ridiculous. Ancient laws about bonding obligations. We're not property to be claimed or discarded based on some cosmic biological imperative. It's not about possession, Nira said softly, rising to place a gentle hand on her sister's arm. Deep resonance isn't something we can simply choose to ignore. I can feel it, Zen. The way my very essence reaches for his, like planets drawn to their star. Can't you? Zen's defiant posture wavered as her sister's words struck home. Her luminescence shifted to a vulnerable violet, and Jackson saw the truth in her eyes. Yes, she admitted quietly, it's like I'm incomplete when he's not near. But that doesn't mean we have to accept some archaic trial that could kill us all. What's the alternative? Jackson asked, moving to stand between them. I leave, and you both fade. I choose one of you, and the other dies? Tell me there's a fourth option, because I can't live with any of those outcomes. The three of them stood in a triangle of swirling emotional light, each processing the impossible situation they found themselves in. Jackson reached out simultaneously to both sisters, taking their hands in his. The moment their skin touched, something extraordinary happened. Their individual luminescence began to synchronize, creating patterns of light that pulsed in perfect harmony. Look at us, he said softly, wonder creeping into his voice. This isn't normal, is it? Even for your people. Nira stared at their joined hands where silver, gold, and blue light wove together like cosmic silk. I've never seen anything like it. It's as if our energies are naturally meant to blend. The trial, Zen said suddenly, her voice filled with dawning realization. Maybe it's not as impossible as Elder Voss believes. Maybe we've already proven that Trinity bonds can exist before anyone could respond further. The very air around them began to shimmer. Elder Voss materialized as if stepping through a veil of starlight, his ancient eyes fixed on their joined hands and the unprecedented light show they were creating. Remarkable, he breathed, his mental voice filled with awe. In 3 millennia, I have never witnessed such natural synchronization. Perhaps the trial is not the risk I believed it to be. What exactly does the trial involve? Jackson asked, not releasing his hold on either sister. The chamber of infinite reflection, Elder Voss explained, his tone shifting to something more hopeful. It is a space where the boundaries between individual consciousness dissolve. Participants must navigate shared visions, confront their deepest fears together, and prove that their connection transcends mere attraction or compatibility. Shared visions, Nira asked. The chamber shows you possible futures, but not just the pleasant ones. It reveals every doubt, every fear, every potential source of conflict or failure. Many who attempt such trials discover that their bonds were built on illusion rather than truth. Zen squeezed Jackson's hand tighter. And if we pass, then the Trinity bond becomes permanent and unbreakable. You would be linked in ways that go beyond anything recorded in our history. But the elder's expression grew serious. You would also be dependent on each other for your very existence. The death of one would mean the death of all. We're already dying without the bond. Jackson pointed out, at least this way, we face it together. The decision crystallized between them without need for further discussion. Their synchronized luminescence pulsed brighter, and Jackson felt their determination flowing through the connection like liquid. Courage, the chamber of infinite reflection, lay deep within the heart of Ethros, accessible only through passages that seemed to exist partially outside normal space. As they descended, the walls became less solid and more suggestion. Constructed from crystallized thoughts and ancient memories, the chamber itself defied description. It was simultaneously vast and intimate, filled with mirrors that reflected not their physical forms, but their souls. At its center stood 3 pedestals arranged in a perfect triangle, each topped with a sphere of pure, uncontained starlight. Place your hands upon the spheres, Elder Voss instructed, his voice echoing strangely in the otherworldly space. Let the trial begin. The moment they touched the spheres, reality dissolved. Jackson found himself standing in a vision of Earth, but not the Earth he remembered. This was a desolate place, scarred by wars and environmental collapse. A voice that might have been his own inner doubt whispered, "This is what you fled from. This is what you'll become if you abandon your human nature for alien love." But even as the vision tried to fill him with despair, he felt Nira's presence beside him, her healing energy washing away the toxic thoughts. And Zen's adventurous spirit blazed through the connection, showing him that running from his past didn't define him, choosing his future did. The vision shifted. Now they stood in a Luminaran court where angry voices accused them of corrupting ancient traditions. The crowd bayed for exile, for separation, for the dissolution of their unprecedented bond. Zen's natural defiance flared, ready to fight the entire world if necessary. But Nira's wisdom tempered it with the understanding that some battles were won through patience rather than force. Vision after vision assaulted them, futures where their love turned to jealousy, where the stress of their unique situation drove them apart, where the very intensity of their connection consumed them. But each nightmare was met by their combined strength, their ability to support and balance each other through any trial. Finally, the visions coalesced into a single scene, the three of them, standing together on a platform of pure light, surrounded by swirling galaxies. They were older, marked by time and experience, but their bond remained unbroken. Around them, other Trinity unions had formed. Their success had opened new possibilities for love. Throughout the galaxy, we did this, Nira's voice whispered through the shared space. We changed everything. Together, Zen added, her mental voice strong with conviction. Always together, Jackson completed. And as he spoke the words, the chamber exploded with harmonious light. When the brilliance faded, they found themselves back in the physical chamber, but transformed. Their skin now held a permanent luminescence that shifted between their three distinct colors. In perfect synchronization, the Trinity bond had been forged, and its power was undeniable. Elder Voss stood before them with tears of starlight streaming down his ancient face. In 3,000 years, he said, his voice filled with wonder, "You have given us something I thought was lost to legend. You have given us hope."